Hi everybody, it's Beth from Hungry Happenings. Today I am going to show you how to decorate some beautifully decorated chocolate Easter eggs that you can fill with candy, or as we have, chocolate truffles. Anything you like to put in your eggs, you can put in your eggs. They are chocolate shells, as you can see, that are decorated with a luster dust and some Dragees. In this case, we've used silver and gold, and I'm going to show you how to use some different techniques. And there's all sorts of different ways you can decorate them. You can put any design on them you like. You can make them really simple, or you can leave them plain. We've got a little gold one here that's just plain. They're beautiful just plain. You can use any color. You want to use edible luster dust, and which comes in, I think, like 7 or 8, maybe even 9 or 10 different colors, so you've got a lot of options. So we're going to get started by showing you how to make the eggs. And there's a couple different techniques you can use. You can paint your eggs, or you can fill your eggs. So I am fortunate enough to have some chocolate tempering machines behind me, and they keep my pure milk chocolate and pure dark chocolate in perfect temper. So I can just pour my chocolate right out of the machine. You can make these using candy melts, almond bark, any of those kind of confectionery coatings, or if you know how to temper chocolate, you can temper your chocolate and use the tempered chocolate. So if you're using a really thin chocolate, you're going to want to make sure you put two coats of chocolate on your eggs. And to make these, we're going to use plastic eggs. Now, these particular molds I have had in my possession for probably 20 years. And they were made by Wilton back in the day, and they were made specifically to make the sugar eggs. If you've ever seen those panoramic sugar eggs, they were created for those. They sadly are no longer available like this, but any egg you can find at the store that is smooth on the inside will work. So I have gotten them at the drugstore and Walmart, places like that. You just need to make sure when you open the egg that there's no grooves, there's nothing in the inside of the eggs. And wash them really well, dry them really well, and you'll be able to use them. Now for this particular project, I want an egg that has a flat bottom, like this. I know specifically at Michael's, I saw some eggs. They're two-tone. One side, I believe, is clear and one side has a color on them. Those are perfect. They're a little large, but I like them to fill up with truffles or candies, things like that. You can make them in different sizes. You can see there's a tiny one. You can make them giant. But the only good thing is you just want to make sure, if you can't find a flat bottom, you can create a bottom by putting a little puddle of chocolate down and setting your chocolate egg on it. But I like the ones with the flat bottom so that I can open them up. I don't have to glue them together. I just keep them as they're like boxes. So I'm going to package these up. I'm going to put the truffles right in there, give those as a gift like that. And then when the person opens them, they find the wonderful truffles on the inside. Okay? So we're going to move over to my chocolate machines and create some chocolate chocolate eggs. So for those of you that are just joining me, I'm Beth from Hungry Happenings, and I have the luxury of having a tiny little chocolate factory in my home where I have 2 chocolate tempering machines that keep dark and milk chocolate in perfect temper for when I want to use them. I realize you don't have these machines at home, so what I'm going to show you, the technique I'm going to show you, I'm going to use the chocolate right out of the machines. All you have to do is make your chocolate in a bowl, temper it in a bowl, or use candy melts, whatever you want to use, and just use a spoon, and you can pour it the same as I'm going to show you with the spout. So what I'm going to do is just fill my eggs. There's 2 techniques, and I'll show you both techniques on how to fill them. I like to do the pour, dump, and scrape method, just because I get a really nice shell on my eggs. So I'm going to fill it up with chocolate. I'm going to fill it completely with the chocolate, and then I'm going to set it aside for a little bit, a couple minutes, and let it kind of develop a nice thick shell. The chocolate on the interior, on the inside of the egg is going to stay melted. On the outside, it's going to start drying. It's going to start hardening around the chocolate, or the plastic eggshell. So I'm going to pour this side in, do the same thing.
Sonia says hi from Northeast Texas.
Hi! I hope you're having nice weather down there. We are finally having sunshine today. I'm so very happy. I feel like spring has finally arrived. Very excited about that. The top shell that doesn't have the flat base, you need to kind of prop it up a little bit. So we'll just prop it up like that. Let me grab another shell and I'll show you a different technique. Now you can paint the chocolate into the mold as well. So once again, if you've got a bowl of chocolate, just pour a little bit of chocolate into your shell, into your plastic mold, and then just use a paintbrush. These paintbrushes should only ever be used for food. Ever, 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 ever. Okay? Just wash them really well when you get them home from the craft store, and then you can use them. Any paintbrushes work. I particularly like ones with plastic handles because my brushes get washed a lot and the wood handles will start to peel because most of them are painted, and I don't like those peelings. I don't like to have that exposed wood. So I'm just painting the chocolate into the shell. So if you're using candy melts in particular, this is a great method to do this. So I've got a nice thin shell. I'm going to wipe the edge clean just to make sure I've got a nice clean top. If you see that it's puddling down in the bottom of the egg, brush it up the side again. You want to get a nice even coating. You're going to end up with a little bit of thicker chocolate at the tops or the bottoms, however you want to look at it, of the eggs, but you want to try to eliminate as much as you possibly can. So we got a nice even coating there. Now, I know it's hard to see on the screen, but the edge of the chocolate is thinning a little bit because the chocolate is going down into the egg. So I'm going to flip this upside down, and I'm going to let that chocolate kind of slide down the side of the eggshell and get a little thicker around the edge. So we're going to do the bottom same way. Just pour in some chocolate. So if you're using a bowl of chocolate, just pour it in. Use your brush. You can even use a spoon to do this. I like to use a brush just because the spoon sometimes will scrape the edge of the mold while you're working with it, and you can end up with holes in your chocolate. You want to make sure the entire mold is very well covered. So we're getting a really good thick coating here.
Kauai says hi from Panama City, and Patrick loves your t-shirt.
Oh, hey, thanks. These t-shirts were designed by Megan from the Decorated Cookie. If you haven't followed her page, she has a fantastic page, and it was designed for our fun food blogger retreat that we had last year, and we might have them back up for sale soon. I've had a lot of comments on them lately, so we might do that. We might try to get them up for sale, so if anyone wants to buy one, you can. All right, so I'm going to get another mold, and I'm going to show you these eggs. I am going to put a gold luster dust on, but say you don't want to get that fancy and you just want to do kind of a little more simple type of decorating technique. I'm going to show you how to do it with a little bit of milk chocolate. Let me grab something to put some chocolate into.
Jess wants to know how much candy you would use if you were doing candy melts.
If you're doing candy melts, I have not weighed these. Let me weigh one really quickly, and I can tell you how much you'll need for an egg. Now these eggs are probably, what would you say, 5 inches long? So it's really going to depend on the egg that you're using. But this used about 1/3 pound of chocolate, and it's about 5 inches and probably about 4 inches tall. So if you're doing them with candy melts and you're doing the painting technique, then you'd probably get 3 out of one bag. 4. 3, because there's only 12 ounces in a bag of candy melts. Sorry, doing math in my head quickly while everyone's watching. So, all right, so I'm going to take a little bit of milk chocolate, and as you can see, my milk chocolate is super, super thick. And I'm going to take this is a stencil brush, so it's kind of it's got hard bristles on it, so it's going to make a nice little impression here for me. I'm going to dab that chocolate on my parchment paper, and I'm just going to go into the egg and give it some dabs. So I'm just going to make kind of a speckled egg. So if you're using candy melts, you can use colored candy melts. They have a beautiful new turquoise color, and they also have a really pretty light blue. You could take and do dark chocolate speckles and the light blue, and it would look like a big robin's egg. It would be gorgeous. So I'm just gonna speckle in a little bit more. I don't know how well you can see that. Just a little bit here, we'll put it up against there. Just a little bit of speckling going on. Put a little bit more in there. I'm gonna get some that are a little darker.
Yvette
spots.
says hello from New Mexico.
Hi Yvette, thanks for joining. All right, so I think that looks pretty good. And I'm gonna set that aside while I'm doing the bottom one. So once again, we're just gonna take a little bit of chocolate, speckle it in, and then I'm gonna coat this with dark chocolate. Now, I do not have a tempering machine for white chocolate, unfortunately. I wish I did. And I will admit that my hand tempering ability is not so great because I have a crux. You know, when you have a crutch, when you have these machines, it's just been years since I've actually hand tempered, so I don't really have to. And honestly, I use white candy coating. I use confectionery coating for most of my white projects because I just like the flavor of it a little bit better than pure white chocolate. So I don't often temper the white chocolate. So we've got some nice color.
Sarah wants to know if you have to worry about the bristles falling out of the brush.
You do, but you can see it. You know, sometimes it will happen. Once you get the chocolate on there, it's not so bad. There is one kind of coming out, but it's not coming out of the way. So when you take your egg, just look at it and make sure there's no bristles in it. When I brush, I use a soft bristle brush, and they very rarely come out. Buy good quality brushes. That's one of the tricks. Okay, these have been sitting here long enough. I'm going to get back to this in a minute, but I'm going to show you this trick. So this has kind of developed a little bit of a shell around the outside. So if you're doing this in a bowl, you just pour this right back into your bowl of chocolate. So you just turn it upside down and allow the chocolate to come out. And then I kind of tap the top of the mold to help it along a little bit. Now this technique is really good if you're making a lot of eggs and you have large bowls of chocolate, you know, that you're using. The painting technique is probably better if you only want to make a handful of eggs. So it's got a really beautiful, nice shell there. We can double this if we want. If I don't think that's quite thick enough, then I would let this harden and pour in another thing of chocolate and double it, which I have done with some of my eggs. I like them a little bit thicker and sturdier for this particular property, or this method, because I like to be able to be sure that when I'm transporting them to a friend's that they'll hold up really well with the truffle filling. So now these are the ones we painted, and they're starting to harden. They're not as even and smooth, but they still look pretty good. And I think we've got a couple spots that are a little thin, so I am going to pour in just a little bit extra chocolate and just make sure I get that edge a little thicker, because I don't want really thin shells around the edge. This looks really nice though. Get a nice lip to be able to, oh, this one's pretty good. A little messy here, so I'm just gonna break that little piece off. It's a little thin right there, so I'm just gonna add a tiny little bit more. And as you can see, my paintbrush has gotten a little gloppy. I would normally wipe that off, so keep your paintbrush wiped off and then you won't have this big mass of chocolate on your thing. So these look pretty good. I'm gonna put these in the refrigerator.
Yvette wants to know where you're located.
I am in Ohio, in the Dayton, Ohio area. So these shells are nice. I didn't turn that one upside down. If you have a scraper, and you can tell, I can see that there's chocolate that's kind of sticking out over the edge. I'm gonna take my scraper and scrape it off. You wanna make sure that you don't have chocolate hanging over the lip of your candy mold. It will make that very difficult to get out of the mold once it's hardened. So make sure you clean that off, whether you do it with your finger or you do it with the scraper. And this is just a paint scraper from the hardware store that I only use for chocolate. It's only ever been used for chocolate. So put these in the fridge, and we'll let that one sit for a few minutes. while I finish these up. Okay, so then the ones with the speckles, same thing, I'm just gonna fill them up. I'll just do this a little more quickly so we can get on to the decorating. I'm just gonna dump them right away, just so you can see what the shell is gonna look like. So you can see that right through there. So it's really, like I said, if you're using candy melts and you've got colors, you can make beautiful, beautiful colored eggs with that as well. I like to use the pure chocolate just because it tastes a little bit better and I have access to it. But I realize that you know, if you're not skilled at tempering, just use the candy melts, or Merkin's makes confectionery coating, Peter's makes confectionery coating, that's actually one of my favorites. Who else? Van Leer. I think there might be one or two other companies, or Ghirardelli, or however you pronounce it. I never pronounce it correctly. They also have chocolate melting wafers. Actually, I have a bag that you can get at the grocery store. So these are great, and they actually have a really nice taste, but they don't have to be tempered, so they're really simple to use. Or just their regular confectionery coating, but they have a really nice taste to them. Okay, so we're gonna let those sit aside and come back over here, and I'll show you how to decorate them. Now, there's a couple different methods of getting your luster dust onto the eggs, and you can put the luster dust right into the mold, but as we found today, it kind of discolors your molds, and I didn't want all my molds to have color on them, so I created this gold egg where I brushed the luster dust right onto the mold, and then I poured the chocolate egg. But for the most part, I prefer to put the luster dust on after the eggs have come out of the molds, because that way I don't know, it's just easier. I like the look of the luster dust. It's really, really shiny and really pretty. The colors are really vibrant. So you can do it either way. So those of you that don't know what a luster dust is, it is a metallic looking dust that is made for decorating. A lot of times they use it for decorating flowers on wedding cakes, but you can also use it on chocolate. You just want to make sure that you get FDA approved edible luster dust. There are a lot of them that are only used for decorative purposes. So for a chocolate egg like this that's going to be eaten, just make sure you use one that's FDA approved. So I'm going to take 2 halves of my egg, and when they come out of the mold, and I don't have a mold sitting here in front of me, basically you just pop them right out of the mold. So they will come like this gold one. Let's just pretend it was in the mold. Seriously, when it's done, you will tug on it, and if it comes out of the mold, it's ready to come out of the mold. If it sticks, put it back in the refrigerator for a little while. If you're using confectionery coating, you want to freeze them. Now, one of the things to watch out with confectionery coating is if you do not make the shell thick enough, it can crack if you leave it in the freezer for too long. So put it in for about 7 or 8 minutes, check it, tug it. Don't tug too hard, just kind of gently tug it. If it comes out, it's ready to go. If it doesn't come out, pop it back in for about a minute, try it again. If you leave it in for 20 minutes or so, you're gonna come back, most likely it's gonna break in half. So just kind of watch it. The chocolate, the pure chocolate, you can actually leave them sit on the counter and they will harden. I like to throw them in the refrigerator just as a little faster. I make sure that it hardens quickly and I can get it out more quickly. So I'm too impatient, especially if I only have a couple of molds. Okay, so I've got 2 halves of my mold, 2 halves of my egg, and I am going to take a cotton ball and I am going to dip it in my luster dust and then try to get a little bit of excess off. Then I'm going to go in a circular motion and burnish the gold right onto the egg. This also gives a nice kind of look to it when sometimes you see the swirls, sometimes you don't. Every egg's a little different. It'll depend, there might be a little bit of imperfection in the chocolate egg. Can you see how that's going on there? It's just gorgeous. really, really, really pretty. Now, the only thing to be careful of is if you don't burnish it enough, it'll wipe off. So you want to make sure you go around it a couple of times just to make sure you get that really ingrained into the chocolate so that it doesn't just all wipe off. Now, it will wipe off if you try hard. If you put your fingers across it, just don't do that. Just be delicate with them. All right, so we've got that nice top. I'm gonna do the same with the bottom. And I always cover my table with paper because this luster dust is hard to get off your countertops or your tables. I don't know what it is, but it just kind of stains a little bit. It will not permanently stain anything, but it just is, I think it's just the texture of it that makes it difficult to get up. When we got it off, we had blue all over the table earlier and it all came off, but it's just better to put a piece of paper down and you can just throw the paper away. And I try to keep the bottom a little cleaner. You know, you get a little bit on there. All right, I'll go back over this a little bit again. You can brush it on, but then you're gonna get brush marks and streaks. I've always found the cotton ball to work a lot better. So then you just wanna look at it closely, make sure there's no fuzz from the cotton ball. For the most part, there usually isn't. I've never really had a problem with too much of it sticking. And then it's ready to go. So before we get into adding our decorations, has anyone got any questions out there? Anything coming in?
Yvette wants to know if you can order these.
No, sadly, we were just making these before the show, and Kennedy, the girl that's behind the camera today, she said, "Oh my God, I cannot even imagine how much money you'd have to charge to make these eggs." They are a little bit time consuming. To this point, they're quick and easy. It's the decorating with the beads you're going to see in a minute that it is a little tedious process. So these are really eggs you want to bring to somebody as a hostess gift. That somebody, you know, if your mom, your grandmother is hosting Easter, they're special. They're really special eggs. They're I don't know. They are time consuming. So no, sadly I do not sell them. I used to years and years ago, but I don't anymore.
Kwai wants to know what they can do if their hands are too hot when they're working with chocolate.
Gloves help because I have extremely warm hands, very warm hands. Crank your air conditioning up, make sure it's cooler in your house. If your hands get really, really hot, I have been known to stick my hands in ice water and let them sit there for a minute to cool down, and then I put my gloves on. I cannot touch chocolate with my bare hands. I will melt it. You could even see on the glove a minute ago that I had a little bit of chocolate melting on it. So I touch it as little as I possibly can. I leave it on the table as much as I can. I had to lift it up in order to get around the edges, but take it from the bottom, you know, and just don't hold on to it. Do not sit like this with your eggs and work with your eggs. You want to just leave them on the table as much as you possibly can. But ice water helps. I've had to do that. That was another thing we discussed before we started because these are filled with rolled truffles. And truffles are just chocolate and heavy whipping cream. Actually, these truffles were made with candy melts and ice cream. I took toffee candy melts, which I'm not even positive are still available, and chocolate ice cream. And I melted the chocolate ice cream and I used the chocolate ice cream just like heavy whipping cream. Makes amazing truffles. I absolutely love it.
Very good.
And then we just let it firm up a little bit. We scooped it and rolled it. And she was having a little trouble getting the topping, the shaved chocolate to stick because her hands weren't warm enough. So I said, you got to really roll them until they get sticky or put your hands under really hot water. So some people have the exact opposite problem because their hands are so cold. But I always wear gloves. That really helps. Okay, so we are going to use Dragees, or little candy pearls. Candy pearls now come in so many pretty colors. There's pink, there's purple, yellow, I've seen mint green, which is really pretty. And a lot of those are available at the craft stores now. So Michael's and Joann's, Wilton's carries all these different candy pearls and they're available. The silver and gold ones, a lot of times you can just get those at the grocery store anymore. So I just realized that, no, here I have it. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're going to glue some beads on using some chocolate. So I'm gonna go get some chocolate. Actually, while I'm over here, I'm going to scrape my eggs and get them into the refrigerator so they don't harden too long. Now these shells are a little thin, so hopefully they will come out of the molds okay and I can show you how they look. I'd probably go ahead and add a second coat, but I'm not going to today, right now. That one looks good. Okay, and then I'm going to get a little bit of chocolate. If I were working with candy melts, I would probably either use a Wilton candy pot or a skillet. I've showed you that the last couple of times we've done Facebook Lives, where I've taken a skillet, filled it with warm water, and put mason jars filled with my candy melts in them to keep them warm. With this, I will just run back and forth as I need to get some more melted chocolate. So I'm going to take a pair of tweezers. I like the ones that are a little offset. They're the easiest to use. And I'm going to grab a bead and I'm going to just get a little bit of tiny little bit of chocolate on it and just stick it down on my egg. So you can make super elaborate designs, or like I'm going to do here, I'm just going to put a little bit, some beads around the egg, just kind of in a random pattern. And you can see they stick pretty easily. If you get too much chocolate on your bead, then you're going to make a little bit of a mess. That one had a little bit more chocolate, but if you're really concerned about it when you're done, you can go in with a paintbrush and add a little bit of luster dust. And it's like I smudged a little bit there, so I will just take, when this is dry, when I'm all finished, I'll take some luster dust and I'll go back in. I can't really see really well because I'm not over top. I'm usually like standing over top the eggs to see exactly where I'm placing these. So they may be a little askew, and who knows, it just could be everywhere. But just gonna randomly put them. If you look at the ones over here that we did earlier, I've got a spiral pattern, and then Kennedy did one with some lines and she used some tiny little beads. I will, when I am all done with this, actually I did already, I posted a picture on Facebook announcing that we were going to go live at 3 o'clock, so you can look back at about 2:45 on the Hungry Happenings Facebook page, and you can see, I don't know what were there, maybe 6 or 7 different designs, and there was a collage of them. One of them has a beautiful butterfly pattern on it. Some of them have little flowers. One of them is a little bit more funky, and it's got swirls and some kind of, I don't know, like maybe Aztec looking designs. Anything you can think of with these beads, think about it as like a connect the dots kind of thing. Anything you can do with dots, you can do with the beads. You can make you could design a little tulip on here. An outline of a tulip. You can put people's names. I made these before where I have created the beads. Now you can only do short names, right? But I've put, or initials, you can put somebody's initials. You could put some really pretty, what's that called? Monogram type initials.
Jean wants to know where you got your chocolate machines.
My chocolate machines are from Savage Brothers, and they're a company out of Chicago. They make industrial size machines, huge machines for the candy industry. And these machines, believe it or not, are actually they're models that they bring to trade shows. So they're called their tabletop machines. They're apparently very small, small compared to big, huge factory machines. And they take them with them to trade shows so that they can demonstrate the machines. I have been using these machines since about 1995, I believe. You can hear that noise in the background. There is an agitator in the middle of them that it constantly stirs the chocolate. I'm so oblivious to the noise now because if I have these machines running, I hear that noise all day long. So it's just kind of the hum of the chocolate machines. But they are fantastic machines. At the time I bought them, I believe they were around $3,000. That was a long time ago, so I can't even imagine what they cost now. But if you do any quantities of chocolate throughout the year, all the time, if you're in business at all, they are so worth the investment. I mean, seriously worth the investment to not have to hand temper chocolate all the time. It just saves me hours and hours and hours. I can't even tell you, and all the stirring you have to do, and I just, it's a lot of work, so I love them. There are small machines though. So if you're just doing it at home, there's a I think Choco Vision makes a small machine, and ACMC or something makes a really small machine. That's an interesting machine. I had one of those for years, and it is a machine that runs on a light bulb. So the light bulb actually heats up the bowl enough to temper the chocolate. And this is hilarious, the story. My nephew actually sat in it and broke it when he was like 3. That's Kennedy's boyfriend. So he's 19 now. He'd probably kill me if I'm telling the story. But yeah, no, he came to my store one day and he just thought it was a fun place to sit. And he sat, no, there was no chocolate in the machine, but he sat and then cracked it and broke it. So that was the end of my machine from ACM, I think it's ACMC or something like that. So this is a really simple one. That took me what? A couple minutes to put those beads on there. Like I said, there's a little bit of chocolate in here. I'd go back in with a brush and just put in a little bit of luster dust. And then we're gonna get some truffles. Yum, yum.
Yvette wants to know what temperature you have to have the chocolate at.
Okay, so if you're doing pure chocolate, tempering basically is a process of taking the chocolate and heating it up to about 115 degrees. Then you have to cool it and then heat it back up a little bit, and you want it around 90 to 91 degrees. It depends on the brand of chocolate you're using. And in my machines, I do the process a little bit differently, but there are 4 or 5 different methods of tempering, and you can look up online the different methods. You can either seed it by putting in, when it gets real hot, you put in some crystals of chocolate, you put in some small pieces of chocolate, and you seed it. You stir it until it cools down. You can do it on a marble slab, where you cool 2/3 of the chocolate on the marble slab and then put it back into the warm chocolate and seed it that way. You can do it in a machine. You can do it in the microwave. There's ways of trying not to get it out of temper, which means you don't ever get it above 91 degrees. That's a little tricky. I've done it before, but it is a little tricky. So there's a lot of different methods. If you're using candy melts, it depends on the thickness of the candy melt, to be honest. Most people will melt it and it'll be probably between 115 and 120 degrees. You don't want to go a lot higher than that. I like to let it cool down a little bit so that it gets a little thicker. Sometimes your candy melts are just thicker and they'll work really well. If they're super, super thin, you're gonna have a really hard time getting a coating on your shell, on your plastic molds. So you wanna make sure that they're a little bit thicker or a little cooled off. So these truffles we made a little earlier. If you do dark chocolate, it's 1 pound of dark chocolate to 1/2 cup of heavy whipping cream. You can either pour the whole thing in, heat it in the microwave, let it melt, or you can heat your cream just to a scald, just until it just starts to bubble a little bit, and pour it over very finely chopped chocolate and let it sit for a couple minutes, and then stir that until it's nice and creamy. Let it cool. I don't like to put mine in the refrigerator. I usually just let it sit for a couple of hours at room temperature. I put a little piece of plastic wrap right over the top of the chocolate and let it sit for a few hours. I feel like that gives me the creamiest texture. And then you just scoop them and you roll them. You can roll them in sprinkles, you can roll them in nuts. We roll these in chocolate, so we just shaved some chocolate using a cheese grater. And these truffles here were made with ice cream. So if you have a favorite flavor of ice cream that you like, you can just melt the ice cream and use it in place of the cream. So swap it out. Now if you're doing milk chocolate, you need 20 ounces of milk chocolate to a cup of cream. So a little bit more chocolate, because milk chocolate is softer than dark chocolate and white chocolate is even softer. You use 24 ounces. So Kennedy's laughing. What are you laughing about, Kennedy?
Todd wants to know what the truffles taste like.
chocolate. They're really good. When you're making truffles, use the best chocolate you can. Use chocolate that you like to eat. I don't recommend using chocolate chips because, you know, most chocolate chips, I don't know, they're okay. They're not great. So find a chocolate that you absolutely love and use that to make your truffles. They're soft and creamy, and when you don't have a chocolate shell on them, these just are rolled in chocolate. So I'm gonna pull this apart and you can see just how soft that is. And they stay soft like this. So it is the most luxurious chocolate. Imagine Haagen-Dazs ice cream in a ball of chocolate. It's that kind of thing. The mouthfeel is really nice, it's smooth, and the temperature's fabulous. So you'll love them. Love them, love them, love them. And that's what I recommend putting in these eggs. If you're gonna go through the effort of making these gorgeous eggs, fill them with something really yummy. I mean, you can make these and fill them with jelly beans if you want, but I prefer putting something beautiful and lovely in them. I don't necessarily do the molded chocolates, like if it's, you know, you pour it into a mold and make them, because they're a little harder to fit in these eggs. These nice little soft truffles, you can kind of snuggle them in. Now, I probably put a little too many in here. I probably have to take one of those out in order to get those to fit. But you just, you know, close it up and they fit nicely. I like that. And they'll stay fresh. Truffles will stay fresh for about 2 weeks. If you add a little bit of liqueur to them, they get a little better shelf life, so you can get an extra week or so out of them. And you don't have to refrigerate them. If there's something sciencey about the cream and the chocolate melting and how it all works, that it keeps the cream fresh at room temperature for a while. So if you've noticed, you go into most candy stores, their truffles may be in a cooler case, but they're not actually, they don't have to be refrigerated, so they'll be fine. If you want to keep them longer, you can put them in the refrigerator. They'll stay a little bit fresher, a little longer. Let me see. I don't think the chocolate and the dark and the light chocolate are going to be ready yet, but let's see. So I can show you.
And Sandra wants to know how to keep chocolate tempered the longest.
That's tricky. That's very tricky. When I have taken classes with pastry chefs, they have a heat gun that they use. So if they're only using a bowl, typically they'll use a stainless steel bowl. It holds heat a little bit better. It holds the temperature a little bit better. They will take a heat gun, it's a little stronger than a blow dryer, and they will run the heat gun around the outside of the chocolate to warm it back up, to kind of keep it at a standard, you know, at the right temperature. Most of the time they will use tempering bowls. So the bowls actually have heaters underneath them to keep them warm enough. So if you're doing it at home, it is tricky. It is really, really tricky. That is one of the main reasons I bought these machines, because when I opened my first store and we were trying to temper enough chocolate to work with it during the day, it was hours and hours and hours of tempering chocolate. I just felt like I was wasting so much time. These machines will hold 50 pounds of chocolate, so it's really, really nice. I have seen people take a heating pad and set it down. Now that can get a little too hot on the bottom, but you just kind of gotta keep watching the temperature. I've also seen people turn on their oven to the lowest temperature, open the door of the oven, set a towel down, and put the bowl on the oven door. And the warmth from the oven kind of circulates a little bit and helps it keep it a little bit warmer. But it is, to me, it is the most challenging thing about tempering. If you temper and you're going to make chocolate bark and you're pouring it all onto a tray at one time, no problem. But if you're working on something where you're continuously creating something, you got to keep it tempered. You got to keep the temperature at the right, you know, you got 90, 91 degrees. So it is a little tricky. All right, let's see. I think. All right, so when you look at an egg, I can see this little spot here. It's still dark. That means it's still a little bit wet, but I'm gonna go ahead and pull this out of here just because I want you to be able to see it before we go off air. So I don't think it's gonna stick too badly. For the most part, you want it to look like it's dry, okay? I'm gonna tug it out, and it came, so it's good. All right, so it's got a little bit of a marble to it. You can see, I don't know if you can see on TV how shiny it is, but it's a really beautiful shiny sheen on there. So there's so many options with this, how you can get this done, and this one's not ready yet, with any colors, all sorts of colors. These are really beautiful. You can do colors. Let me show you a real quick technique. If we do some multicolors on the outside of an egg, I've got all these really vibrant. Let's see, I had a pink here somewhere. I don't know where the pink went, so we're just going to use these orange and yellow and blue. Kind of an odd combo, but
Jen wants to know what the ratio for chocolate to heavy cream was again.
1 pound, 16 ounces of dark chocolate to 1 cup of heavy whipping cream when you're doing a truffle like this, because you want it to thicken really nicely so that it holds its shape. Milk chocolate, 20 ounces to 1 cup of cream, and white chocolate, 24 ounces to 1 cup of cream. Okay, so I'm going to take a little bit of orange. Now these are Wilton dusts, so these you can just get at the craft store. We'll add a little yellow, like that. I'm just going to do orange and yellow. I think that would be prettier than adding some blue in here. And then I'm going to try, just lightly, to swirl it. And these are a little bit more matte colored. Kind of just running together. I've done this before with some of the more vibrant lusters, and yeah, this is not working all that great. Some of these, if you put some of these on, let's see, I don't think the blue is that great. Let's see, this blue is a really vivid color. So maybe if I went in and dusted them in first, like this, in the spots. And we'll get those in there really nice. Then we can go in and add the yellow. I think some of it is just that this yellow is just not as vibrant. Some of the colors aren't. Okay. So it's kind of working. Getting a little bit of extra color to it. I like the eggs where they're done with one really vibrant color, and then I like to add the color with the beads. You can also color these if you're going to use pure chocolate. You can use colored cocoa butter. I really wanted to show you that technique today, but unfortunately my cocoa butters were a little old and I didn't want to put them on eggs because they didn't taste so great. But you can take and you can melt cocoa butter and color it with powdered coloring or candy coloring, and then you can actually paint into the molds, which is really nice. Let it harden a little bit and then pour in your chocolate and get some really pretty colors. So, any other questions?
No,
okay. Well, I don't know what time it is at the moment, but at 3:45 a new video is coming up, and I created these. I found, my sister gave me this peep. It's a rainbow stuffed peep. I am in love with it. It's so cute. And last weekend when the little kids were here and their mom, my friend Nikki said to me, Beth, you have got to recreate this stuffed peep out of something. So immediately I started playing around and I created these peeps. They are made with Fruity Pebbles, right, like a Rice Krispie treat, but using Fruity Pebbles. So the back is rainbow and the front is rainbow too. So they're drizzled in colored candy melts, and I just think they're absolutely adorable. I'm so excited about this video. So make sure you check the Hungry Happenings Facebook page for that video. 3:45 it's going up. And like my YouTube channel, I've got a fairly new YouTube channel. I really would love some subscribers over there, and be sure to check out all of my Easter treats at Hungry Happenings.
And the Instagram.
And Instagram, yes, that's right. Kennedy's working on my Instagram, trying to get some people. If you haven't been around for a while, these are a couple of the other treats I've made. I made some little chicks out of Reese's Cup eggs, so they're super easy. Even kids could make these with candy eyes. And then this bunny is one of my absolute favorite treats I have made this season. It's a white Reese's Cup bunny with candy clay ears and candy clay carrots. I just love them. So adorable. So be sure to check them all out, and I will see you next time. I won't be here next Sunday because it's Easter, but I hope to be back after that. So see you later. Bye. Thanks for joining us.